everybody, it is Blonde Blitz time. Let's go. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Blonde Blitz. I'm your host, Deb Whitcas. I'm super excited about today's show. Not only is Ben Troupe, former tight end for the Titans and the Buccaneers, joining me for game picks for week 8, I get to interview him about his 5 seasons in the NFL. I'm super excited to talk with him and kind of get to know why football and what brought him to media as well. My friend, I love her, and Spanish radio analyst for the Raiders, Mayra Gomez, is here. She joins us for Week 7 Hot Takes. NFL injury expert Brian Scott joins us to talk about all the injuries across the league. There's been so many lately. Had to bring him in. Also, HGTV designer, that always stops me up. Designer to the athletes, Shay Holland is back. The trade line is coming up, guys, November 5th. We'll talk about where do the athletes live when they have to move so fast. Of course, betting expert Alex White joins us live from Vegas. We're talking MVP odds. Guys, it's almost halfway through the season. It's crazy. So let's start talking MVP a little bit here. And finally, Commissioner Cooper talks fantasy for week 8. All right, guys, shall we do it? Let's get started with headlines. Kansas City is the last remaining undefeated team in the NFL and the 7th reigning Super Bowl champion to begin the following season 6-0 since 2000. They joined the 2019 15-0-4 Patriots, the 2011 Packers, the 2007 Colts, and the 2000 Rams. Moving on to player awards, starting with the NFC. We've got Offensive Player of the Week, Eagles running back Saquon Barkley. Barkley recorded 187 scrimmage yards and a rushing touchdown. He has 761 scrimmage yards this season, the most by a player in his first 6 games with a team since his first 6 games with the Giants. Just putting that cherry on top there with that Eagles 28-3 win over the Giants. Just saying. Defensive Player of the Week, Rams quarterback Colby Durant. He recorded an interception, sack, and forced fumble and became the first DB to do that this season. Special teams, Lions kicker Jake Bates. Bates converted on all 4 of his point-after attempts and kicked the game-winning 44-yard field goal with 15 seconds remaining to help Detroit overcome a 10-point deficit in their 31-29 win. Moving over to the AFC Offensive Player of the Week, Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. He completed 17 of 22 pass attempts for 181 yards and 5 touchdowns, and he also added 52 rushing yards. There have been 5 games in NFL history in which a player has done this. Jackson has done it 3 of those times. On the defensive, Broncos LB Cody Barton. Barton recorded 8 tackles, 1 pass defense, 1 forced fumble, and a 52-yard fumble return touchdown. He was the only AFC player this week to score a defensive touchdown. And finally, special teams, Bengals wide receiver Charlie Jones. This one got me so excited. Jones returned the opening kickoff for a 100-yard touchdown. I may have been screaming at my TV. He also recorded a 39 punt return yards with in Cincinnati's win. But all right, guys, those are your headlines for Week 7. Now it's time for Hot Takes. Hello, Mayra.
Hello. Hola, ¿cómo están?
Guys, everybody, please welcome our special guest, Spanish radio analyst for the Raiders, Mayra Gomez.
Raiders. Raiders. I'm sorry if I didn't do that, the Raiders would just come after me. So I just had to.
Right.
I
love your background. We were talking before the show. I was like, you need to just spray paint Raiders on there.
Put some graffiti, make it cool. If it only existed, right?
Exactly. So let's get started with hot takes. The thing that stuck out to me the most this week was Russell Wilson's stellar start in his Steelers debut. Do you think this might be, are the Steelers now an elite team?
The Steelers, I mean, they have a winning season, right? But then again, Mike Tomlin always has this team is with a winning record. So the reality is this a team that can actually get to the postseason? That would be the biggest question. Can they get there with Russell Wilson? Well, you already know that Justin Fields had an incredible season. He was doing things right to the point where I actually called a couple of my friends who work for the Steelers and said, hey, you want to send him over to Las Vegas? I'll take him. Right? I don't know if the team will take him, but I'm happy to take him off your hands. You know, you want to go Russell Wilson. Right? Russell Wilson did have a rough start to the game, but, you know, he picked things up. He does have a lot. He once was a successful quarterback. Then he went to Denver Broncos. So that's a whole other story. We kind of totally forgot about him. Will he come in and actually do
Peyton's problem? Yeah.
You know, it's really that, but I think it's more that. Once you get to the postseason, you mentioned we're almost halfway through the season. However, this team is always the biggest question is not whether they're a good team, whether they're a winning team. There was that season a couple of years ago where they went 10 wins, consecutive wins, and yet still did not manage to win in the postseason to the Browns on a terrible game just a couple of years ago. So that's really the big question. Can this team get to the postseason? I'm not there yet. I'm not convinced after one game. You had to come back. I mean, come on. Not yet.
Well, and real quick, you brought up a great thing about Justin Fields. I mean, the Raiders need a quarterback. Could that be something?
They brought in a quarterback already. They brought in Ridden. They brought in Ridden from yes. They brought him in from the practice squad from the Cardinals. So he's a former Atlanta Falcons. I think we're good. I think I'll let you know. I'll let you know after next weekend.
I missed that news.
Yes.
All good. And something that I was just really impressed with Russell Wilson in his post interview, which you used to do the post interviews for Thursday Night Football for Prime. He was very team oriented. I felt like he kept on thanking the team and, you know, we're in this all together. And I feel like it was a different Russell Wilson than I'm used to seeing and hearing. He seemed always a little bit about himself, and now he's all about the team. What are your thoughts on that, being a sideline reporter?
And I think that's great, right? So you originally have this Russell Wilson who goes is in Seattle. He makes a name for himself. He's got this whole thing. He's always going to be reminded for not giving the ball to his runner. PTSD still, because he gave another title to Tom Brady, but now he's my boss, so we can't talk bad about Tom Brady. I love Tom Brady. But
Russell Wilson
goes to Denver, right? He ends up with the Broncos, and there was all of these stories about how he demanded his own office, how he would come into the office. He had his own parking space, you know, all of these different things. And there was a big controversy about how much of a teammate was he really in Denver. And there was all these, you know, rumors. There was a few things that were confirmed. And some of the players were saying, well, he earned it. You know, he's Russell Wilson. He's the Russell Wilson. He's won a ring. He knows what it takes to get to a championship. He knows how to have a winning record. But it was always very selfish. It was always this quarterback who thought about him first. It was him, Russell. And now you're right. When you see his post interview and he's talking about the team and he's talking about the players and he's talking about everyone else but himself. Yes, I think he hit rock bottom in Denver. I think he realized that, you know, it doesn't take just the quarterback, even though these teams revolve around the quarterbacks and the quarterbacks are very important. It isn't just the quarterback that's going to give you a winning season. And I think that, again, he hit rock bottom and said, wait, I got to wake up.
And Cannoli agrees with you, by the way. My dog is down here barking, so he agrees with you.
Hello.
You mentioned Tom Brady being one of the owners now of the Raiders. And I'm not even sure if you can answer this question, but I'm going to ask it.
Let's hear it.
Is this a conflict of being a Fox broadcaster?
According to Fox, it is, right? According to the NFL, not to Fox. According to the NFL, it is where he's been limited on everything. They don't allow him to be part of the broadcast meetings that broadcasters have. He's not allowed to attend practices. So according to the NFL, it's a conflict for them. They don't see it right. The owners don't see it adequately. And therefore he's getting paid to be an analyst to do the things that a broadcaster normally has the opportunity to do. And that's what sets you aside. When you're a broadcaster and you have the opportunity to talk to the players beforehand, you have the opportunity to attend a full practice. That's another thing that broadcasters have, the talent has. When you're part of this broadcast team, you actually get to be at the entire practice. You watch the way they train, you watch the different runs, you watch the formations, you watch all of the schemes that they have planned moving forward, because that allows you to talk about the game once it comes on. And so that's one of the things that I can see how it's a conflict and why the NFL says it, because it's like, hey, you now own a team. You are in their building, because the moment that was approved, Tom Brady was in Vegas. He was at the Henderson facilities on Wednesday. He was welcomed. He was at the practice. He talked to Antonio Pierce. He talked to some of the players. And so, yes, they want to avoid any possibility or opening that door where Tom Brady is sharing information with the Raiders. That's really what they want to do. That's all it is, right? And so, yes, I can see where that comes from.
Right. It's great to have some inside scoop there, by the way.
It's awesome. I love being a broadcaster. When I was the Prime, and you have those rights and you can attend the practice and you can be there every single day. You can write down what's going to happen. And then when you see the scheme actually take place on the game and it works, right? Or when a player is running in the opposite direction of his route and he's supposed to cut left and cuts wide, or he doesn't go down the line, you're like, wait, I saw that.
Yep.
Like, that's not the quarterback. That's the wide receiver. He didn't run the right route. And so it's things that you can actually talk about during the broadcast. So yes, it's amazing.
What was it like to have Tom Brady in front of you?
What was it like? I've had him in front of me several times, actually.
Okay.
That wasn't the first time I met him. Funny enough, I will share a story with you. I flew to Tampa with his parents when I worked with Prime for the broadcast. And his parents were just incredible people. They were amazing. His sister was there. So I actually met his family before meeting Tom. Then later I met Tom at the game. But yes,
awesome.
Yeah, Tom's a great person.
Another hot take I wanted to talk about: the Jets. They're now 2-5. They've fired their head coach, Robert Saleh. Davante Adams was brought in, former Raider. Last week was a Raider.
Yes, literally.
Is it time now to?
I saw him last week in the locker room.
Right? I think we actually talked about him, to be honest.
Yes, we did.
Is it now time to look at Aaron Rodgers as the problem for the Jets?
No, you can't say Aaron Rodgers is the problem. I can see, again, I see where these things come from. And it's like, you brought in a veteran quarterback that was supposed to facilitate things. He gets injured week 4, then you go an entire week. Then he comes back and you have the opportunity to showcase what you had. He brought in wide receivers that he wanted. He brought in the players he wanted, and yet the plays are not being executed. And now Davante Adams is there saying the winning mentality isn't here. The culture isn't here. And even though they expected him to come in and be the savior and be this wide receiver that was going to connect with Aaron Rodgers because they knew it, because we've seen what these two are capable of doing, it's not going to happen overnight, regardless of the history that they had. And so one of the things that Davante highlighted, and I will repeat, is that he said, the culture isn't here. I'm not there. I can't speak on behalf of that. I was a little surprised to see that. As far as Robert getting fired, word on the street says he had nothing to do with it. Again, things I cannot say. It says, he won the problem. I mean, a lot of people do say, right, that he's one of the problems.
He says it. He just commented.
That we can't say, right. I just read that comment, right? Yeah. And it's the thing. It's that, right? Like, is he part of the problem? Well, right now they're trying to lean on him. The problem in a sense of like building this culture. Well, I mean, my understanding was he had a winning mentality, but now you brought in Davante and he's saying the winning mentality, the culture, it's not here. It's not in this building. A lot of these players have only played here. They don't know how to win. Almost. That's kind of, that's what I understood from his words today. And so maybe it's not just Aaron Rodgers, but it's the entire team. I thought they had a pretty good culture. I absolutely love Robert. I love what, the mentality and the mindset that he had when he was with the San Francisco 49ers as coordinator. Again, bringing in Aaron Rodgers, I don't know if that was the best thing to do. Aaron Rodgers had to leave Green Bay. He was ready for something new. And I think in a way, people just in general, some people may have thought that he was kind of like Tom Brady, where he goes from the Patriots and then ends up in Tampa and gets a ring. I mean, they're two very different people, two very different quarterbacks. I would never have expected that from him, but some people did. And I think that that's one of the reasons that everybody looks into the Jets and says, like, well, where's this ring? Why aren't things working? And again, last year, it was you were injured for 4 snaps. So you're gone.
75
but then you come back this year and it's like, what's going on?
From a major injury, too.
So now you brought in Devontae Adams. Exactly. So now you brought in Devontae Adams. And okay, I'll take it. This week, fine. You had 2 days to warm up. You're doing things. No, I don't expect Devontae Adams to be a savior. But if the next game they're not connecting and they're not making those plays, then I would say, yeah, you have a bigger problem. And it's not just a quarterback and a wide receiver. This entire team is just not in the right mindset.
Is 2 weeks enough, though? Is 2 games enough? They haven't played together in how many years?
They know each other for many years, though, right?
That's true. That is true.
I mean, that was their argument. That was the argument. That's why Devontae leaves the Raiders. That's why Devontae goes to Green Bay, because they've known each other, because he's, Aaron Rodgers is constantly calling him, is constantly telling him, like, hey, you want to come here? You want to come here? You want to come here? This is where you'll actually make a difference. Then 2 weeks should be enough.
Right.
If you're going for someone in mid-season, it's because that person is ready to make a change into the team that you're bringing in. Because your team has that need, because your team has a desire to have someone that's going to make that snap and turn your season around, or finalize your season in the case of the Kansas City Chiefs bringing in their new wide receiver. So yes, 2 weeks is more than enough at this point. You don't get more than 2 weeks in the middle of the season.
And you just mentioned the Chiefs. They just keep winning. Basically, they're the only undefeated.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes is over there giving balls left and right, getting intercepted at the start of the first quarter against the San Francisco 49ers. And yet, as you just mentioned, they keep winning.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, should we just call Super Bowl now? Or
No. Have you watched the Detroit Lions yet?
I have.
I would say hold off. I would say hold off on calling the Super Bowl. I do not think we're calling the Super Bowl yet. Again,
I've also seen the Ravens. I think
exactly. Oh my God, how much fun is it to watch the Ravens? Yeah. I absolutely love watching the Ravens. The Ravens. The Ravens. Plus, I can highlight that the Raiders beat the Ravens. I just want to point out.
Yep.
And yes, the Kansas City Chiefs also beat them, but the Ravens have gotten so much better since then. They're an incredible team. They're so much fun to watch. King Henry's out there. He's a different runner, like no other runner out there in the NFL. I mean, this is a player who's 200 pounds running down the line, and then he's still beating himself up because the corner was able to catch him in the red zone and he couldn't get into the end zone. And now these are the type of expectations I wish every player had. Like these type of standards where it's like, you had a great play. It's like, I could have been better. Should have been better. So yes, I absolutely love watching the Baltimore Ravens.
All right, Maya, that's all the time we have for Hot Takes. I need you to come back, though.
Absolutely. I love talking with you. Thank you so much.
Where can our audience find you?
At Myra L. Gomez on, I was going to say Twitter. I still say Twitter, on X and Instagram. I also have TikTok, but I'm terrible at it. I don't know how to dance.
So am I.
Wait, are we still dancing in TikTok? I don't even know if we're still dancing.
No, there's a bunch of different stuff going on TikTok. I'm an Instagram girl. That's about the extent of my social media. But all right, thank you so much for coming. We will see you soon. Love you.
See you. Love you too. Well, bye.
Bye. All right, guys, let's talk now to Brian Scott from the Injured List. Brian, come on in.
Doctor and no.
Brian, how are you?
I am in the virtual athletic training room here at That Sports Podcast Network. You can see on the wall, we've got some of our sponsors up there. Things are good.
Good. Well, things aren't as great on the field with all these injuries, huh?
No. It's been a crazy season.
Yeah.
The cool thing is it's been a lot of different injuries. It hasn't been like any one particular injury, which makes it exciting and more fun for me to kind of give my spiel each week on the different injuries and stuff. I mean, just this weekend alone, you have Brandon Ayuk going down, Deshaun Watson going down,
me.
Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Deebo Samuel, Jaden Daniels, Aiden O'Donnell, Tyler Huntley, Braxton Berrios, DK Metcalf, and Puka Nacua finally coming back, just to name a few. I mean, that's not even covering some of the other big names, Christian McCaffrey and some of those other guys. I mean, I am so busy right now. But Deb, I always have time for the Blonde Blitz. Love the show. You did such a great job with it. I had to come on when you asked me. But I know you had some names that you wanted to run through. So let's get started.
Okay.
I think the first one you mentioned, I may have already spilled the beans on, was
Chris Godwin.
Chris Godwin.
I'm worried about the Buccaneers.
Yeah, well, that's a pretty nasty injury. It looked like he dislocated his ankle, did not look good. You watched him getting carted off the field. You could almost see him mouth the words, "Did my joint pop out?" or something like that. And yes, it did. And that's almost certainly going to require surgery. He's done for the season, likely. I don't see any scenario where he can make it back in time, even for a late playoff run, should the Bucs get there. Unfortunately, I think this is it for him for this season.
I actually
devastating injury.
Godwin's aunt and family during Tampa Super Bowl, and I got to interview them, and they were the nicest people ever. So
it helps to have a good family network and support system there to get you through an injury like this, because this could be career altering. It's a significant injury. It's not one to be taken lightly. So helps to have that in your corner.
How about Jaden Daniels? Also, I'm on the DL, a Commanders fan.
Oh,
don't tell my Eagles peeps that.
Yeah.
I'm worried about him.
We'll keep that here. He's got a rib injury. Doesn't sound like it's too serious, but with rib injuries, your thorax, your rib cage is involved in just about everything you do. Even breathing can hurt. I mean, like, this takes a long time to get better. It sounds like they're already saying he's going to be week to week, which literally could mean week to week. And it could actually even be day to day based on how he feels. There's really not much you can do for rib injuries except treat the symptoms, usually pain, not being able to take deep breaths and things like that. So once you can get the pain under control and you can start kind of getting more physically active again, then you can kind of ramp up your activity. But unfortunately, it takes time for that pain to subside. Even with a rib sprain or a rib bruise, contusion, it can be very, very painful. Those are notoriously painful injuries that take some time to heal, unfortunately.
Ugh. And first of all, I love that his mother was the one who was updating everybody. That was really special to me.
I'd rather hear it from a mom than hear it from a coach in a press conference. I hate to say, but it's true.
It was special. So I'm sending him good vibes. I want to see him back. He was doing so well.
He'll be back. He'll be back. I don't think it'll be too long. He'll be back.
Absolutely. Well, how about also the entire San Francisco team?
Devastating for them. Devastating. It all started to unravel early this year, right in the preseason. Yeah, it's like ridiculous, to be honest with you. Maybe this is like some bad juju or bad karma. I don't know. But
what did they do? Because
I don't know, Deb, but I tell you what they didn't do. They did not listen to my NFL pre-draft injury special that I do every year, I should say, because Brandon Ayuk was actually featured the year he came out of college as one of the injured players on my list. If you make that list, it's not a good thing. It's sometimes a bad omen. And here he is now getting an ACL, MCL injury. He's out for the year. The question now will be whether or not he's able to come back next season and when. So, you couple that with the CMC injury, and then you got Deebo Samuel ending up in the hospital with pneumonia. Who knows what's going on over there in San Francisco, but it ain't good.
Right. And Tua is actually back this week. They're expecting him to play, and he is saying he doesn't want to wear the Guardian helmet, which you can talk a little bit about that. What happens if he goes down again?
Well, the problem is with concussions, it's a cumulative effect. So every time you get one, the risk of getting another one is more significant, potentially more severe as far as the longevity of the symptoms and the potential damage to the brain. It won't necessarily take as much force to cause another one, unfortunately, as well. Each time he gets concussed moving forward, there's a risk that some of that injury to the brain could become permanent, or, even more serious than that, could lead to some type of really serious traumatic brain injury that could see, significant levels of mental or cognitive decline, physical to that extent. So there's a real risk in coming back here after having the significant concussions he's had. The Guardian cap, that's a whole other topic we can discuss at another time. But the fact of the matter is that the research on the Guardian cap is not quite scientifically strong enough there where people can, without a doubt, say it prevents concussions. So whether or not he wants to use it really is a personal choice. With or without that device, it doesn't guarantee that he wouldn't get another concussion anyway. There's a lot of other things that factor into concussion prevention, concussion being able to withstand or eliminate the concussion or reduce the risk factors. So it's not just a one, helmet and that's it. There's other things that go into it. But I applaud him for taking the risk. I understand it, as a passionate person in sports and as having been around athletics and stuff my whole life. If I had the opportunity to play a limited amount of time in the NFL and I'm there doing it at a high level and I'm succeeding, I wouldn't want to be taken out like that either. So I can understand the mental side of it and the personal side of it. I wish him the best. I hope we don't see anything like we've seen in the past, because that could unfortunately be the end.
Absolutely. And people were speculating it was the end when this most recent one happened.
I'm sure there were more than one doctor telling him he should hang it up.
Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see what happens on Sunday. Hopefully everything goes smoothly for the rest of the season. Last question.
Yes.
Puka Nacua. When am I going to see him on the Rams field?
So I like that you're ending on a positive note. He's actually entering the 21-day practice window. So this means that they have 21 days with which to, sorry about that, I don't know if you heard that, with which to activate him back to the active roster as he kind of gets back into the swing of things, get back on the practice field. With a PCL sprain, I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be able to ramp up his activity quite quickly and get back out there within a week or two. I don't think it's going to be that long before we see him in game action. So pay attention to those beat writers, watch each day at practice, and you'll know your answer before most people do.
I cannot wait till I have him back on my fantasy league.
It won't be long, I'm telling you.
Every week I look down IR. Is he off?
And let's not forget, they still don't have Cooper Kupp back, do they? So they need somebody too.
Yeah, possibly this week, but there's also he might get traded too. That's coming up later in the show. All right, Brian, thank you. Where can our audience find you?
Yeah, so I'm most active on X at Injured List Pod. You can find me on the website, theinjuredlist.com, on Facebook and Instagram, the Injured List Podcast, and of course, TSS Fantasy with that sports podcast network here on the Blonde Blitz. And then, you'll see me pop up every now and then on some other shows as well.
All right, Brian, thank you. We'll see you soon.
My pleasure.
All right, guys, with the trade deadline approaching on November 5th, HGTV designer to the athletes, Shay Holland is here to talk about where the players live when they have to move oh so fast.
Let's get started.
Oh, that's real good.
Hey, Shay.
Hi, Deb. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Fabulous. Well, with the trade deadline approaching, some of these NFL players are getting a little displaced in their places that they're living, correct?
Absolutely. And I don't know if most people realize that can be, you go into work not knowing that you're going to get traded.
True. It's just a phone call sometimes, and you're not even in the facility. Sometimes you're at home,
And they're sometimes expected to be on that plane within hours.
Yeah.
Or, like in Aaron Rodgers' case, he was already on the plane when it was announced because he was going for a physical, is my understanding. So it was just insane how fast it moves. And then, say, for example, with Aaron Rodgers, he was expected to play that Sunday. So not only, do you have to move, you're trying to learn, the plays of your new team. You're trying to prepare to play. He had like 2 or 3 days of practice, and that was it. So it's my understanding that, Aaron Rodgers said this, that he opened up his home to have Devontae stay with him. Because I might have said Aaron before on the trade. I meant Devontae.
You did. That's okay.
Oh my gosh, no, don't do Aaron.
And to that point, we've seen, Devontae Adams go from the Raiders to the Jets very quickly last week.
That's what I meant.
Amari Cooper, he went to the Bills, and Titans Hopkins went to the Chiefs. So any ideas who else we might see like going other places?
It's going to be interesting because we have until November 5th, I believe, is that trade deadline. And so I'm not on top of all of who necessarily might be traded in terms of just the players and everything, but looking at where they're going to have to go. Like Devontae had to go from Vegas all the way to New York. You're going cross country on this trade. And so since he had a place to stay with Aaron, he's not having to deal with where is he going to live in that trade? Where is he going to be staying? And a lot of times when they get traded, they don't know how long they're going to be with that team that they've been traded to either. And so they're working, most teams these days have their operations department that they're going to be working with and helping in terms of where that player is going to get settled. But I've been thinking about this week, and I'm like, I can't even imagine you walk into work, or like you said, maybe it's just a phone call, and you're thinking your life is going to be just the same as kind of some of the other days. And you're like, no, you need to be on a plane in a couple of hours.
Right.
Like in your case, you've got pets, you've got a car, and dealt with.
My next question was, what happens to their current living situation? Like, if they're renting, are they forced to eat that remainder of what their rent is, or do they sell their places when they don't even know if it's going to work out with their new team? Like, what does that entail?
Can you the questions are, just exactly what you say. And it just depends on, in that contract, it should have, at least when they get to the other side, that team is going to take up, here's some of the expenses they're going to take up. For example, whether it's a hotel or a corporate apartment, a lot of the teams have arrangements with corporations that run apartments that are already furnished. They'll take care of that for a few months, or they'll take care of rent somewhere for a few months. And that'll all be spelled out in that trade agreement. But it is up to the player on the other side then to be dealing with all that other stuff. And so it's, if they have a lease on a place, that's up to them to figure out, are they going to try to get out of that lease? Or is that, what are they going to do with all of their possessions? Some players live literally out of storage units. If they're, maybe not a player that's super high up on some list and don't know from, one game to the next where they're necessarily going to be. And the closest thing I could think of in like my own experience, we were a military family, but even then you generally had at a minimum a couple of weeks before you knew you had to move to take care of everything, because there's so much. Yeah. And, or even if you're a first responder, generally, you're not necessarily moving permanently out of your home. You're coming back after that deployment or that assignment to the same place. So that's why you see a lot of players with permanent homes that they keep and hold on to, because this could happen at any time, or they could be released and then they're in a city that they have no ties to. So it's something else aside of the game that we don't really hear about too much and think about too much, but it definitely puts, humanizes, I think, the players when you understand also kind of the stress of that for the family. Your dog barking, like I can't even.
And Canoli agrees with you too.
Canoli's like, don't move me, don't move me.
Yeah, Mom, we're staying here in LA.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, some of these players have families, wives, kids. What do they do?
Well, sometimes that can be the godsend, because the partner can be taking care of all of the details while the player goes ahead and heads off on the road. So the partner might be able to stay behind and deal with, selling a house if they owned a house, or dealing with getting out of the mortgage. They can be packing up. Some of the players, especially some of the younger ones, literally just travel with like an air mattress and their suitcase, because they know they may be getting traded at any moment or released at any moment. And so it just depends on the player situation. Again, that's why some of them keep their primary home. So if their kids are starting to get a little older, where they're school age, you don't want to necessarily be pulling your kid out of school same day. Like that would be traumatizing, to your kids as well. So there are a lot of considerations behind the scenes. I did work one job. It wasn't with athletes, but it was with entertainers. And we would go into the hotel and prepare prepare it for the VIP before they arrive there. And so there are those services that are doing that for the players as well, where they're going into whether it's a corporate apartment, a home, or a hotel. But in this case, we had to literally clear out the hotel room completely except for the bed, and then move in that VIP person's own personal bedding and their own personal towels, whatever it was, their clothing. And sometimes that would literally be for one night.
Wild. So wild. Just to get a phone call and have to go is it's a little scary.
Yeah, so we'll have a better idea on all of these trades, obviously, by November 5th, and hopefully that'll be done. I think the biggest surprise is probably the one, for Devontae with the Jets is probably the one that, people were expecting it at a certain point, but.
And Cooper Kupp might happen too. I'm a little worried about him.
Saw that.
Rams, so that's rumored too. But all right, Shay, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you soon. Where can our audience find you?
Shay Holland Official, and always such a pleasure to be part of the show.
All right, talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right, bye. All right, guys, it's time to get into some sports betting. Coming to us from the South Point Casino in Las Vegas, betting expert Alex White is here live with us. Hey, Alex.
Hi, Deb.
How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good. It's so good to see you live.
You as well. You're doing a great job. I love your show, and I love all the guests that you have on.
Well, and we love you. Thank you for being a part of it. So as I said earlier in the show, we're almost halfway through the season.
I hate that.
I know. I like, part of me. Yeah, it's weird. It's like I love it because I love every week, but then I'm like, oh God, it's like almost, not that it's coming to an end anytime soon, and there's a plethora more of football to be played. But let's talk a little bit about MVP, because we should kind of start that conversation. Who's the favorite right now?
Okay, so Lamar Jackson is now the favorite after last week and that big win. The interesting thing is Patrick Mahomes is the second shortest odds, and he was the favorite going into last week. And this year isn't really like a normal Patrick Mahomes year, right? I mean, he's thrown more interceptions than normal. So there's a couple guys that I'm looking at that I think you could get some good value.
Okay, and who are those?
Okay, so Jared Goff right now is 10-1, who is having a phenomenal year. I mean, he is breaking records, having no incompletions in these games. You can still get Joe Burrow at 14-1. So if the Bengals go on a run here,
they could. I mean, they've won their last two. It is definitely a possibility. I mean, Burrow's obviously an elite quarterback. But I love your Jared Goff. I love Jared Goff when he was with the Rams, and when he got traded to the Lions, I was like, wait, I feel like they just switched quarterbacks. Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff. So it's so nice for him to actually see him clicking on the field. So I don't know if I'd take him before Lamar Jackson, but I think I would take him before Patrick Mahomes right now. I actually have Mahomes in my fantasy league, and I didn't win last week because of him. So actually, I have the Jets defense too. So that's actually why I didn't win. But yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes, like you said, he's not the normal Patrick Mahomes that we're used to seeing.
I think just because they're undefeated right now, they're the last undefeated team. He's the best player on the best team, right? So he has these low odds, but there are some people down. You are right. It is still tough. Lamar Jackson could easily win this. They are playing outstanding. And now Derrick Henry is the odds-on favorite, or the shortest odds favorite to win Offensive Player of the Year, rightfully so. But it's getting interesting. I mean, even Jalen Hurts, you can still get really good, 40-1. But, of course, he does have Saquon really doing a lot there. But Purdy, Baker Mayfield, 27-1. There's some very interesting that we will continue to talk about as the season goes on.
Can you give me your best bet for this week in general going into week 8?
So surprisingly, it's a favorite, and I usually try and stay away from favorites. I love underdogs. I love getting points, but this one I can't stay away from. It is the Green Bay Packers. 4-point favorite on the road playing against Jacksonville. Now, Jacksonville, remember, 2 weeks in London. So they have to come back. They have to adjust. They've also won 2 of their last 3 games, but they played a really beat-up Colts team without Jonathan Taylor. And then they lost their first game in New England to Chicago, and then they won pretty convincingly against New England. They had the advantage. They were staying there the entire week, right? They're supposed to win that game. So I think we're getting a pretty low number here with 4 points for the Packers, especially because they messed around and they almost lost to the Texans. They lost that turnover battle, but they still found a way to win.
They squeaked it by. I knew they were going to, and I'm a huge CJ Stroud Texans fan too, but I was rooting for Green Bay on that game. So,
I mean, both are really good, right? And it was fun to see CJ Stroud and Jordan Love for the first time and that matchup. But yeah, I mean, they made a lot of mistakes. I think he had 2 interceptions and they had a fumble. So, but they still outgained Houston, who's a very good offensive team. So I think 4 points. And road favorites, Deb, have been covering at a crazy number this year in the NFL. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's very cool. Tell me a little bit who all was covered. Like what?
Oh my gosh. Well, so going back to last week, the Eagles were just a short favorite against the Giants, right? 3 points. That was easy. Trying to think of some other ones. Steelers were at home. I can give you, and for next week, I'll have the number 2. It's like 22-1 or something. It's
crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Alex. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
I can't wait.
All right. See you soon.
Thanks, Deb.
Bye. All right, guys. Now, cannot talk betting without talking fantasy. Here's Commissioner Cooper. What you got?
We're on a mission, guys. We're on a mission, guys.
Hello, I'm fixing my hair.
And I was on mute anyway, so it didn't matter.
How are you this evening?
Doing great, Deb. Thanks so much for having me in. Man, you have a great show tonight. There's so much I wanted to pop in and comment about. Tua, the Raiders, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it just goes on and on. Shay bringing the noise. Great stuff. We appreciate it. Now I'm going to bring a little noise to you all. So sit back, relax, let yourself go, because the champ is here. Last week I struggled a little bit, but if you played fantasy at all, even normal fantasy in regular leagues, you've saw that scoring was down last week. It was down majorly. So I felt accomplished getting over 100 points last week. And amongst my crew, I still reign supreme. So that's all that matters. Let's talk about this week. Kirk Cousins, great matchup and bounce back, because Kirk Cousins is that guy. It's always 1 week he's great, 1 week he's not. Here's a good week to get great. Tampa Bay 31st against fantasy QBs, $6,200 is a great price. How about Javonte Williams coming in real cheap, $6,000 only for Javonte. Carolina Panthers dead last against fantasy running backs. How do you not like that matchup? And then I spent up a little bit this week. I don't normally spend a lot, but this is where I was like, you know what? That was something I wanted to comment on when you brought up Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, he is the problem. They drive the football with Breece Hall and then decide to throw it 3 times. Makes no sense. So I think the smart people are going to say, you know what? Let's stick with that running game that got us down here, and they're going to punch it in with Breece Hall. Like him a lot this week. The Patriots are 30th against fantasy running backs. T. Higgins in a nice matchup against the Eagles, 23rd against fantasy receivers. Also, you got to think Jalen Hurts and Saquon going to put points up, so the Bengals going to have to throw to stay in this matchup, so I like it. And how about Jalen Waddle from America's team, the Miami Dolphins? Only $5,400, and the fact is it's Tua time in this, you know what? So I like the play there. Now in my Razan, I wanted to bring up Trey Tucker. I mean, $4,400, super cheap. Basically, their number 1 receiver right now. You could throw me back there, and I could get him 100 yards. So I like Trey Tucker this week. Again, the Chiefs are tough against fantasy receivers. They're number 4. But just like I mentioned about Joe Burrow and the Bengals, they're going to have to throw the football, the Raiders. You're not going to be able to run against the Chiefs because they're going to be up by 41 before the half. So I like Trey Tucker. How do you not like Njoku, who's already stepped up mid-game last week against Baltimore? They're 28th against fantasy tight ends, and he comes in pretty cheap at $5,100. Gotta love that. Darnell Mooney was my combo with Kirk Cousins. Again, Tampa, very putrid secondary. They're 28th against fantasy receivers. Sadly, though, this might not be that big high-scoring matchup I was hoping it to be. And then you gotta like Chargers D going against this banged-up Saints offense, who's 26th right now, ranked in the league. So again, something I like to go against, and especially the Chargers defense has been really rock solid this season. I've been talking about that, but they are really, really good. So that's where I finish up there. Good luck, folks.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, Jason. We're gonna bring in Ben Troupe now. Yay!
Let's bring in Ben.
Hey, Ben. How are you?
How you doing, Deb?
Good. Sorry to keep you waiting there. Had all this good stuff, and I was like, I want to get to Ben. And
Listen, I don't mind watching the show. I could comment on all this stuff from getting. Well, I never got traded, but getting cut, having this house here, having this house there, fantasy. So I'm here for it all.
Amazing. I'm super excited to finally get a spotlight on you. I've been, you've been on the show a few times now, just doing picks. I was like, let me actually talk to Ben and find out what he's all about. Former tight end for the Titans and the Bucks. We'll talk about it. So Ben, tell me. I always ask every single interview I do, why football?
Ooh, why? Oh, hold on. Got this golf drop in. I apologize.
Yeah, right. You're okay.
All right. It was always football, and for this reason, I ran track, I wrestled. Surprise! I even played tennis.
Manager, by the way.
I even played tennis in high school.
You played tennis?
In high school, yes.
I played tennis in high school too.
Now, here's the difference, though, Deb. You were good at tennis. I played tennis, I played tennis so I didn't have to work. My mom was like, "If you ain't playing a sport, you working." I'm out there on the tennis, and I went from third string doubles, which don't play, to second string doubles. By the time I finished high school, I was first string doubles. Now I did get to play third string singles one time, but me and the guy I went up against, we were both tennisly challenged, if that's a word. Okay. Basically, neither one of us can really play. I was a serve and volley dude. I'll serve, run up to the net, try to. But
so football was your thing, in other words.
Football was my thing because I'm from a small town called Swainsboro, Georgia, to where population about back then maybe 3,000, maybe. And everybody just played football, and football was a sport to me. I just took on too naturally because you get to hit people. It's on the grass, and that's back when Gatorade didn't come in the bottles; they only came in a little powder. And we used to pour it in our pitches, and our coaches was like, we used to call it Kool-Aid without the sugar. That's what we used to call it. Give us a Kool-Aid without the sugar in it. But football has always been my first love because I'm not an individual person. I'm not a look at me person. So I'm out there with 10 other guys. Mm-hmm. Hey man, let's do it. And like I said, the things that little boys are aggressive, like to hit stuff, tear up stuff, be chaotic. That's all football with pads on. I'm all for it.
What was that?
I said I'm all for it. When it comes to that, sign me up.
Awesome. And I mean, and being from Georgia, I lived in Georgia for a couple of years, and that's actually really where my love for football came from. People don't realize the South is just it's all about football. That's all anybody cares about, and mostly college football. But did you always play it? Were you always a tight end?
No. So my freshman year in high school, I didn't play football at all. But that's because of my big brother. My big brother had me thinking that high school was going to be a lot harder than middle school. My sophomore year, I went from like 5'8" to like 6'2" over a summer. Wow. So my sophomore year, I was a tight end. Now, when they told me go down with the tight ends, I don't know they're talking to me.
Okay.
Like, yeah, because I didn't know what a tight end was. I'm like, what? Like I'm a tight. Yeah, I knew what a receiver was, running back, quarterback. So I get down there. They said, stick your hand in the dirt. I'm like, okay, and I'm like. It took me a while to get my footing under me, but this is what I had to do that I didn't like. I was a starting kicker and a starting punter there, not because I was good, because we didn't have nobody else. So just imagine this 6'2" lanky kid wearing number 84 is the kicker, the punter, and the starting tight end. And then I went from 6'2" to 6'3", 6'3" to 6'4", 6'4" to 6'5". And hey, I mean, I took a liking to it. Thank God. my body like kind of transformed into what I was gonna be. Because hey man, when they said tight ends, they yelling and screaming at me. They said, Troupe, what are you doing? Go down there. I'm like, go down there and do what? The tight ends. What is it? And mind you, I'm running down there going, what is a tight end?
Oh my God, I love it.
It was crazy. It was crazy.
And what was it like, when you actually, got figured out what a tight end does? Why was that particular position special to you? Like why did you enjoy being a tight end?
Because we are the Renaissance men on the offense. We do everything. We block, we catch, we pass protect, we can be fullbacks. We're interchangeable people. We are a jack of many trades, a master of none. That's a tight end. And because of Trey Burton in the Super Bowl, former Florida Gator tight end, by the way, they let us throw the ball. The Philly special, that is Trey Burton, who went to Florida, who threw it. So for me, I just had to embrace what I was doing. Like, because at first I'm like, what is this? Like, I'm a tight end. I don't even like when people say, what position you play? I'm like, tight end. And they didn't know either. But for me, I just, and because of people like Gronk and Kelsey and George Kittle, Kyle Pitts, there are young men now that want to play tight end. They say, I want to be a tight end. I'm like, what? So, I loved it, though. I loved it once I embraced it. And plus, my coach said something to me that made me embrace it. He says, Troupe, this is what we want you to do. He says, learning the plays, that's us. Executing the plays, that's what we teaching you. They said, but when that ball get in your hand, I want you to dance with it. Show us you can dance with that ball in your hand. And once I got, because certain people, when you watch them play, when you watch, I am not comparing me to Patrick Mahomes, by the way. Let me say that. But when Patrick Mahomes play quarterback, he does it different than everybody else.
Yeah.
For me, that's how I play tight end. I go, look, if there are kids out there, and I wasn't thinking like this back then, there are kids watching me play that's saying, who's number 84? Why is he playing like that? And I didn't do nothing crazy now, but I just enjoyed it, Deb. And when I got to college, it all started over again. But you know how people say, if I could go back, I would play the same position. I wouldn't want to play nothing. Listen, I could have played anything on the offense to get the best out of my talent. And like I say, now I talk trash. Then we have a National Tight Ends Day. I didn't even know LeBron James.
We do.
National Tight Ends Day getting shout outs. I said, wait a minute. So shout out to them tight ends, man. Keep doing your thing. And
isn't there actually like a tight ends day where they all get together and play and speak?
It's a national, yes. Well, it's a National Tight Ends Day. Now they didn't have that when I played.
Okay.
Dad, let me tell you something. If I'm coming to the stadium, I don't care if it's college or pro, and somebody says, Ben, it's National Tight Ends Day. What? I'm going, because to me, tight ends are the people that do the most but don't expect anything. Like tight ends don't. Now, you got the Travis Kelce's of the world who with Taylor Swift. That's the upper echelon. That's out of this world. But I'm saying, for me, it was my job to make what I did important. And that doesn't mean that I cared about the stats and all that. I'm saying, if I wasn't out there, I wanted my impact to be felt. So I had to make it felt when I was, and it was just fun, Deb. Like I said, if you 6'4", 6'5", and you between like 240 and 260, kind of lanky, kind of clumsy, you are tight end. You are a tight end, and we will welcome you with open arms. So let's do it.
Awesome. So you mentioned the Florida Gators. I'm going to do one more question, then we'll do like one or two game picks, and then I want to bring you back next week and finish the interview.
Let's do it.
Like, we're running out of time, and I don't want to go into your show, so I don't want to chip away at that time. You played for the Florida Gators, and you received an All-American honors from ESPN, Rivals.com, and Sports Illustrated. Was that the moment that you kind of knew you were going pro?
No, I didn't even know I wasn't All-American until I got to the bowl game, and I was sick as a dog. And my head coach was like, "You're gonna be the first team All-American, don't even play in the bowl game." And I said, "I'm a first team All-American." He was like, "Yeah," because mind you, once again, Deb, I didn't go for the accolades. I'll take them, but I didn't go for it. I knew
you were there for the team.
I knew when I went to the combine, and they give you this schedule of how many teams want to interview you. You're there for like 3 or 4 days.
Yep.
There were certain tight ends that nobody interviewed them. When they gave me my schedule, it looked like an itinerary. I had every team. So because it's humbling, man. Like I said, tight end wasn't a glamour position then. It is now.
Mhm.
But when I got a chance, when I was up for the John Mackey Award and I came in second behind Kellen Winslow, that's when it hit me. Because somebody asked me, well, Ben, how do you think Kellen, do you feel disappointed that you didn't win the John Mackey Award? Well, full transparency, I didn't even know who John Mackey was. At that time, I didn't. But I know who it is now. But I say that to say, when I didn't win it, right? This is what I said. I remember this. I'm 21 years old. They asked me, I said, Kellen Winslow Jr.'s daddy is a Hall of Fame tight end, right? He's a legacy player.
Mhm.
My daddy was in jail. Not at the time, but I grew up and my dad was in jail. So, and I said it with pride. I said, hey, man, but here's the thought, though, Deb. I'm just going to give you some stats. If one guy had 560 catches, 500 yards, 1 touchdown, the other guy had 39 catches, almost 750 yards and 6 touchdowns. Which player sounds with the better stats to you?
Right.
Which one you think had the better year?
The second one.
And the second one was me, and I didn't win it. So for me, I'm like, hey man, but I didn't go to college to leave no legacy. I went to college to do the best I could for the time I had with teammates I had, and I walked away with All-American honors and John. So hey man, it's a dream. And shout out to the young lady who let me quote take my first team All-SEC picture. They was gonna put it in the closet. I snatched that thing. So if y'all looking for it, it is in my house. And my home will be an undisclosed location. I'm not telling you.
And you learned something on the Blonde Blitz. There you go. Everybody needs that picture. That's hysterical. Well, let's finish the interview next week because I have a lot more questions about the NFL. 5 years in there. Let's do one game real fast. What game are you most looking forward to this week?
Oh, man, hold on.
Vikings, Rams, Cardinals, Dolphins, Eagles, Bengals, Falcons.
Cardinals, Dolphins for America's team. Shout out to the commission.
Okay, there we go for Jason. All right.
This is why I think it's gonna be a Tua sighting, and I heard Tyreek Hill say we back. Fantasy owners, we gonna make a couple of dollars this this week. So give me Arizona and the Dolphins. Man, I want to see Tua. Tua, be careful out there. But yeah. I do want to see that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Tua back. I don't know if he should be, but so I mean the Cardinals are 3-4, Dolphins are 2-4. The Arizona beat Chargers last week, barely, but beat them. I feel like it's going to be a pretty even game, to be honest.
Shout out to Kyler Murray for resurrecting his career. Ain't nobody talking about. Listen, do Kyler Murray look like a toddler trying to take the remote from him when he's scrambling? Yes, he does. But he the man. I love Kyler Murray. So, but I do agree with you. Tua, be careful. I realize it's a lot of money, but the rest of your life is far more important than the millions. Plus, man, you was a starting quarterback in the NFL. You can get an analyst job somewhere. It ain't worth getting not if you can't remember the money you made, it ain't worth it. So be careful out there.
Right. And that's said from a former NFL player who knows and who cares. So, all right, Ben, thank you so much for coming on today's show. Thank you for everybody. This was an amazing show. I had an absolute blast. Don't forget the show is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. Go to Underdog Fantasy and use promo code BLONDE and we'll double your deposit up to $100. Of course, if you like today's show, hit subscribe and follow us all on socials at The Blonde Blitz. See you guys next time. Football forever.